Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So today we've got some Helldivers information that I wanted to cover, and I wanted to speak about it because I do think it's actually a very interesting topic to go over with regards to people that run the games, how they present the games, and how they view the world. So we'll jump right into it. You'll understand a little bit more about what I'm going on about. This screenshot was posted to Steam. Inside the Steam group, it's got this section that says, "Is it woke?" Among Us is not recommended because they're saying that it's a woke game, and Helldivers 2 is recommended because they're saying that it's not woke. This was retweeted by an individual called Catherine Baskin, I'm not too sure, but it was retweeted by this Catherine individual, and she laughed. Underneath it says console warriors are worthless, and they say this whole woke not woke bullshit is so goddamn exhausting. People just need to chill the F out and play some goddamn games. Now I kind of do agree with that on some level, but I do think when certain people are poking gamers, I think it's perfectly normal for people to poke back. In general, I think everybody wishes that it was just a case of let's just play games, but unfortunately there is a tug of war on both sides, and I think the video game developers and the video game journalists are making it a bit more difficult to just be like, let's just play the game. So Catherine followed up with this, and she says, Helldivers is pretty woke. Game was made by a lot of LGBTQ and brown people and black people and women, and it's a big satire on jingoism. Now if you don't know what jingoism is, it's basically a form of extreme patriotism, and to quote what it says on Google, especially in the form of aggressive or warlike foreign policy. In other words, it's an attitude or belligerent nationalism or a blind adherence to the rightness or virtue of one's own nation, society or group simply because it is one's own. So the game is supposed to be a play on that, and you can kind of see that in the way Super Earth is depicted. It is depicted in a way that there's propaganda and you're meant to fight for glory for Super Earth, and it's to spread democracy and all that. You can tell that it's done tongue-in-cheek. I don't think anybody really had a problem with it, but let's continue with the tweet and let's see why it might turn into a bigger problem now. It amuses me they don't know that Super Earth is bad. It also explains a lot about the world at present. Now as far as I can hear, Catherine, that just sounds like treasonous talk to me, so you should be regarded as a traitor at this point. Super Earth is fighting for the liberty and freedom. I don't know what you're talking about. Ramesh says, didn't they ban people from their Discord for suggesting they add LGBT coloured capes? Catherine says, no, we only ban the bigots. Transphobes, homophobes, racists, etc. are not welcome in our community. We had to restrict the topics in Helldivers to general chats for a while because it was triggering massive waves of hate speech which our staff was struggling with emotionally. Now I'm sitting there wondering, who the hell is this Catherine character? So we do a little bit of digging into her, and I come to find that she is the community manager of Helldivers 2. So now I'm raising my eyebrow because of how the way Helldivers 2 is presented and what she is saying. Just bear in mind here, she said, we had to restrict the topics in the Helldivers 2 general chats for a while because it was triggering massive waves of hate speech which our staff was struggling with emotionally. I was a bit taken aback when I read that. Now most of the time when you read these things, it's like, well, this is a load of BS. And I would love to see those receipts, Catherine, if you do have them. But I was under the impression that Helldivers 2 was made by people that don't really hold these sentiments towards gamers, or don't really hold these beliefs, or are not on this whole bandwagon of hating on gamers or making out like we are all spreading hate speech. There's a couple of screen grabs here. Now I'm going to give my thoughts on this, but I'm going to read out these screen grabs to you first. She's quoted here saying, I also don't like the terms casual and hardcore because they come with the implication that skill equals passion. Those words are something gamers cling to, but they are being rendered meaningless as games become more accessible, inclusive and experimental. First of all, that's nonsense. I would say I'm quite a passionate gamer, but I would also say that I'm a casual gamer. Two of those things can exist at the same time. You're just being a wet blanket. Secondly, she says, I'm not talking much because it's not my turn to talk. It's time for black people to be heard and for white people to listen. I want to continue to do everything I can to help, including passing the mic. Catherine, let me do you a favor. Let me give you some advice. I don't need you to shut your mouth, okay? I'm not a wet blanket like the people that behave in this way. White people are allowed to talk just as much as black people. We can all chime in on whatever conversation it is you're referring to. We do not need you to kowtow, bow your head, or pretend like you actually care. I'll know when you care, when you respect me as an equal and you have a conversation with me. I don't need you to open your wallet to me, to make special spaces for me. In actuality, it is just insulting. Next screen grab says, I'm so tired of games focusing on parent/child narratives, period, let alone male-centric ones. There are other relationships worth exploring in games, so explore them. I don't know why you're tired of men being role models in games or exploring parent-to-child aspects in games when it's to do with a man. Bit of a weird thing to say. She then says, you know what, I like games with female stories. I like women. I'd like to see more women doing things in games that aren't motivated entirely by men. It's why Jessie from Control Remedy is great and has a sibling story. I love game siblings. Yeah, that's good for you. Make more games like that then. Let's see how well they sell. Now, female-led games can sell very well, and they have sold very well, and they will continue to sell very well. I'm just saying, from the look of your tweets and by the sound of what you're saying, I don't think you're going to be the one at the head of that helm. But just to clarify, there's no issue with a woman being the lead. She can look like Ellie from The Last of Us. She can look like Tomb Raider. She can look like Bayonetta. She can come in all shapes and sizes. It depends on how you tell the story and your intentions behind it. It certainly doesn't help when you're on Twitter talking a whole bunch of nonsense. Catherine Baskin says, plus hell, and she goes on to make some other really silly comments, and if you go through her Twitter you will find a lot of nonsense. But if you look at her Discord name before this all happened, this is what it looked like. It's got her pronouns in there. It's got all the things that you would expect to see from somebody saying these things. And then it has been changed to this, which just basically reflects Helldivers 2. There's no political messaging in there. There's no right or left leaning messaging in there. It's just a gaming profile, which is kind of what you'd expect to see from a community manager. Now, before I move on to the next subject, I want to give my thoughts on this because everybody knows that I love Helldivers 2. I think it's a fantastic game. But how do I feel about the community manager saying these things about people and playing their game? This is how I feel about it. Helldivers 2 is a fantastic game on its own. If Catherine never opened her mouth, I would be none the wiser as to what her political leanings were or what the people felt like at Arrowhead. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I don't care what they feel like. I don't care what their political leanings are. What I care about is if they're able to produce good games. Now, I'm being honest with you guys when I say I don't care if they're gay, I don't care if they're trans. If you give me a good game, I will play it. You can keep your political leanings out of the game and you can believe whatever you want. I couldn't give two lesses of a shit. As long as you provide me with good games, gay people could make the greatest games on the planet. People that are super left leaning or super right leaning, it doesn't matter either way. They could make the game as long as you keep your BS out of my games, and that goes for both sides of the conversation. I don't care. So she can say that Helldivers 2 is woke. She can say Super Earth is bad. At this point, the community has kind of taken over the law, so it really doesn't matter what she says at this point. But I don't think gamers should pay her any attention. Now, she is the community manager, which is the next thing I want to move on to. What is wrong with community managers in video games? I really don't get it. Why do they appoint these people that just piss off the community? You've got a good thing going with Helldivers 2. And whilst I don't really care for your comments, I'm just pointing them out, and I'm going to continue playing Helldivers 2, you must have known that opening your mouth was going to piss off your fan base. The great thing about Helldivers 2 is that we all fight under one banner. There's no rainbow flag, there's no BLM flag, there's no Trump flag, there's no conservative, there's nothing. It's just the Super Earth flag. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are, we stand together. I have probably played with people from all walks of life, whether that be gay, whether that be black, whether you have one leg, whether you have no eyes, whether you believe that sheep exist on the moon. I've probably played with all of these people on Helldivers and been none the wiser, and my experience has been great. We don't need to know what you believe in, we don't care. She can say whatever she wants about Helldivers, but what I don't understand with community managers is that they're supposed to be there to bridge the gap between the developers and the community, because there oftentimes is a disconnect, and they seem to appoint the most stupid people on the planet. They can't help but tweet out their political leanings, they can't help but tweet out things that are going on in their personal life. Catherine, if you ever hear this video, we don't care. Now obviously it is your Twitter, you can do whatever you want with it. If you want to make a clown of yourself, and if you want to plunge Helldivers into the ground, because as I said, whilst I'm not going to stop playing it, there's plenty of people that are going to read your comments and be like, I don't want anything to do with Helldivers if something like this is at the helm. Now I can truly separate games from politics in real life. I mean that. Despite what you've said, Helldivers 2 as a product and the way it's presented to me doesn't have anything that you believe in it. So you are but a spoke on the wheel. Hopefully you learn your lesson in that you shouldn't be posting dumb shit like this, and you should be supporting your community rather than trying to take the piss out of them or trying to insinuate things. Maybe I'm granting you too many brain cells at this point. It's really just baffling to me. It takes me aback that people get appointed in these positions when it's very simple in what they should be doing. Just support your community, support the Helldivers 2 lore. That is really all you gotta do. If we have grievances with the game, we can let you know, you can let the developers know. No one cares where you lean. I don't know how many times I have to say it, and it's really weird. Now what I do want to say is that if somebody like this does come out and say these things, whilst we can make response videos to them, whilst we can pull them up on it, I don't think sending them death threats or threats in general is a good idea. Now she's saying that a wave of hate speech has been spewed rude at the Helldivers community managers or the Helldivers dev team, whoever she was talking about. I'm not entirely sure. She was very vague. There's no receipts, but let's assume that did happen because we know it happens on the other side of things. One of the examples I wanted to bring up here is Grums. Grums is somebody that keeps us up to date with what's going on in the community. A lot of the information is filtered through him, and he seems to be fighting for gamers rather than the developers, even though I think he was a developer at Blizzard at some point, or he had some sort of position. I think Grum's family recently went through some sort of tragedy in China where there was a massive earthquake and I think some people were injured. Luckily, I think his family escaped. But because Grums is posting against these very liberal gaming developers, I guess you could say, or people that are trying to put DEI in our games, he has been receiving a lot of negative attention. Now, I want to show you some of these screenshots because whilst we always hear from the developers that they're getting death threats, we never see receipts. However, these receipts were posted to Twitter, so I'm going to show you guys these and I want to give my thoughts on them before we wrap up the video. There's a message here from Jeff saying, do everyone a favor and KYS. I don't need to explain to you guys what that means, but it's basically telling him to end himself. You got a message here from Ty Jeanette saying, white men get a fucking life challenge. And then she says, oh, you're a, I'm not going to say that on YouTube just in case, with a white male fetish, obviously. Very weird thing for you to say, Jeanette. Seems like you've got deep rooted issues. Then you've got Abdullah Keim saying, I hate you so much and hope you would. Don't know what that says. If there's any Arabic speakers in the chat, I think that's Arabic. Someday, I don't know what he's going on about there. It can't be anything good. Then you've got Dr. Brandhattan here saying, who lives in a swell at the bottom of the sea? Grum's whole family. Now, obviously, like I said, there was a tragedy in China. That's a bit of a sick and twisted thing to say to somebody. Then he goes on to say, I was hoping Pussy Boy would take the bait, but I guess he's too busy now with renting scuba gear. That is just like, I mean, come on, dude. What is wrong with you? That's someone's whole family. Whilst I have taken a stance against video game developers, whilst I've taken a stance against journalists, and I'm very much against DEI, I do not wish death on people. That is absolutely insane. If you're watching this video and you sit on the other side of the conversation to me, I don't care if you're right-leaning or left-leaning. If we can have a conversation about video games, we can debate where we want them to go, we can push back on things, we can say we don't want DEI and things, but wishing someone's family gets hurt or wishing someone gets hurt because you don't agree with their takes, because you don't agree with their political leanings is insane. You guys realize we're talking about video games right now. Yes, it's fun to talk about these things. It's good to push back on things you don't like because obviously it's a medium that we like, that they like apparently, so you're going to butt heads. You debate ideas, but it's one thing to cuss each other out and have a bit of banter back and forth, but what is wrong with you sick freaks who are going online wishing death on people over a video game? You gotta be insane on some level. Like I said, we might cuss each other. I've said things about game journalists before. I might have cussed them out a little bit, but wishing death on their family, wishing death on them, I don't want to see any of them die. Life is precious. What is wrong with you people? It's a video game. You have got to be twisted on some level. How sad do you have to be to do that to somebody and then put it on Twitter for the world to see? It really just goes to show that people take things way too seriously. I do think it's good, like I said, to push back on these things. I think it's very good to have these conversations, and I've got more of these videos coming up. I just haven't had a chance to get around to editing them. But at no point would I ever wish for anybody at Kotaku to be hurt. And I mean that genuinely. I might meet one of these people in real life and we might have massive disagreements. I might not like them. I might be like, oh, this person's got nefarious intentions with my video games or whatever it might be. But to say that I want to see them in a coffin, to say that their family might be at the bottom of the sea, I'm sorry, but people that do that, I don't care if you're on my side of the conversation or their side of the conversation, you're all idiots as far as I'm concerned. You need to get your head out of the sand. This is a video game we're talking about. These are pop culture mediums we're talking about. You guys are now talking about taking people's lives or wishing death on people. You're batshit insane. That's all I wanted to say today. Community managers' comments be damned. Helldivers 2 is still an awesome game. She can believe whatever she wants to believe. And the people that are sending threats out over games, please get a life. Anyways, guys, I hope you have a good day. Please stay sane, take care, have a good day, and peace.